Hi, my name's Elizabeth.
And I'm Justin.
And this is Late Night Review. So tonight we're going to be talking about extraterrestrial life. The first question is, what do you think of skeptics? Do you have any thoughts on them?
Those who don't believe in aliens or don't believe that aliens have visited us or been to Earth. Skeptics all the way around?
Yeah, all the way around.
Well, I think that if someone's a skeptic saying that there are no aliens, of which I used to be one, then more than likely they haven't thought it out.
One as in a skeptic, not an alien.
Right.
That's what that sounded like.
It did, huh? That'd be funny. I mean, what if some of us are and we don't even know it?
You never know.
You just don't. How would you know? So you probably just haven't thought it out. And I say that because if scientists are even remotely correct about the size of the universe, then the chance for life to evolve elsewhere in the universe is phenomenally good.
Yes.
Phenomenally good.
Agreed.
So, I just don't think that someone who says that there's not an extraterrestrial of some sort, and I don't mean like some sort of protein or amoeba or something like that,
An actual
some other planet. I mean an intelligent being such as us. I just can't buy that there isn't. So I think a skeptic on the universal scale of there is no life except us is just silly. But I think that there's room or one can be forgiven for thinking, well, certainly there's extraterrestrial life, but there is not extraterrestrial life that has visited us because the distance is too great. That's very reasonable in my opinion. That's not me. I don't believe that, but scientifically or observing it, I just don't see how it could be the case if there isn't intelligent life elsewhere.
Going off what you just said, why were you a skeptic in the beginning?
There's only humans. It was a religiously based thought.
Do you mind sharing
Why?
what those religious thoughts were and why you came to that conclusion?
Because I was a biblical literalist, and my interpretation at the time of the Bible was that humans are the pinnacle creation of God, and so there isn't extraterrestrial life elsewhere. But if someone asked me, well, why all the empty space? Why the sides of the universe and only us? I had no response. And I think that one of my favorite movies, Contact, started to chip away at that thought without me even knowing it. In a brilliant manner, when the main character as a child, Jodie Foster, asks her father if it was only us, only humans. He goes, well, if it is, then it's an awful waste of space.
Sure.
That's one of my favorite quotes out of any movie, and that just always sat with me. And I didn't use that to propel myself into believing that there's extraterrestrial life, but just the thought that it's only us, and having even a little bit of a concept of how large the universe is, I couldn't square those two.
And for myself, on why I am a believer, both terrestrial and extraterrestrial life, meaning aliens, another being, like species besides human, outside of our planet, and also a belief that they are in existence within our planet. Okay. And I've believed in extraterrestrial life since I was a child, and I spent a good 33 years of looking for evidence to either weigh against or for that belief. So it's not like I was just totally looking for evidence to support my belief. I was looking for contrary to say, like, okay, maybe this is where I'm wrong. I just have, after all those years of many case studies and then taking astronomy in college, also religious beliefs, which didn't deter my beliefs in extraterrestrial life. It just has all compounded to create the belief that I think they exist.
Fair.
So my thoughts on skeptics. I think that skeptics would probably tie in also with my next question for you, which is, why are people so afraid of the possibility of extraterrestrial life? So back to my original of skeptics, I think a lot of times there could be some of afraid, or the reason why they don't want to believe that extraterrestrial life exists. And also, I think some also just have like lazy thinking. And I know that's kind of mean, but I think it's lazy thinking. A lot of times they'll come across evidence of people's experiences, whatever, and they just dismiss it outright, like, oh, you were imagining things, oh, whatever. And I just think it's like, if you're continuously dismissing people's evidence, then you're not bothering to put in any work or effort to try to figure things out. You're just outright dismissing it.
Well, on that, I feel like I have a really long experiential knowledge on that. When I didn't believe in any level of evolution, when evidence was suggested to me by multiple sources and multiple people I trusted or didn't, it wasn't that I was just out of hand dismissing it. It's that it couldn't penetrate my completely wholesale belief that evolution was a complete sham.
Okay.
So I think there are those people who have that inclination that extraterrestrials must exist and extraterrestrials have visited Earth. They have those and they fight it.
Okay.
Because part of them is willing to entertain the thought. But then there are those who are true non-believers in alien life existing, or if they believe that it does, true non-believers that extraterrestrial life has visited Earth. And in their case, they couldn't change their mind if they wanted to, in my opinion. They couldn't change their mind if they wanted to. Until they have some level of maturity happen, and I don't necessarily mean that they're less mature, just some level of event happen in their life where they now become open to the possibility. Until that happens, those true non-believers probably cannot entertain the thought. But then there are those who say they don't believe that can entertain the thought but actively fight against it. So there's maybe we can see it on a scale. And I just go back to how I was truly on the farthest end of that scale by stating that evolution is the dumbest thought that has ever disgraced the mind of humanity. Dumbest thought. Just pure stupid. And so when people would bring it up, I was like, this poor soul. This poor soul has no idea how foolish they sound, that one thing can become another thing, and they're mistaken microevolution, which is taking on different attributes and things like that, or adapting to an environment, with quote-unquote macroevolution, which is changing from one thing, one species to another. And I could forgive the person who, believes that you can adapt to an environment. I mean, obviously, our skin color, the color of animals can change, etc., etc. Your ability to live in a tropical environment versus a freezing cold tundra. These are adaptations within limits.
Sure.
But to change from some level of Neanderthal or something into Homo sapiens to what we are today, purely stupid, and this poor soul needs help. You know what I mean? That's the thought I had. That's the level where my thought was at. And so having been that before, and now being on the other side of that fence, I really think that some people simply can't believe it. But then I think there's those who, and I wrote this down, I think that there's those who don't care to entertain the thought or what have you. Really what it's about for them is, it's simply been the case that Hollywood and popular culture has built an edifice, an aura of what believing in extraterrestrials looks like and means, and what they look like, or how that would be if they ever made first contact, quote unquote, and etc., etc. And because Hollywood's built that edifice of just, I mean, think of any number of different movies, that's what a lot of people think first contact would be, or what aliens would be, or
Sure.
look like, or things like that. And they want to dismiss, they want to distance themselves from that. If they think it's kooky and ridiculous, they want to distance themselves from that. So believing in aliens, being too close to, and in some way, shape, or form, accepting or being close to that culture of people who are just obviously, quote unquote, weirdos, you know what I mean? We're going to use this as a way to wedge my distance between them and me.
Okay.
And I'm going to actively, forcefully, consistently point out how stupid it is to believe in aliens because we've never seen one or whatever, and certainly the aliens, you know, have visited us before.
Okay. All right. So then we move that into the question of, would you the viewer, would you like to come across or meet an extraterrestrial? I myself am okay without that.
That's funny to me. I mean, I can understand. That's funny to me that you want.
Why?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't want to necessarily meet an extraterrestrial like we've had them presented to us through media and stuff like that.
Sure.
You know, the Greys or the this or the that.
Yeah.
But I mean, like a legitimate intelligent species, humanoid or not, that reaches out for some level of contact with us. Yeah, I mean, of course, if they're benevolent, yes.
Sure.
If they're malevolent, they can just pass on by. That's fine. I don't want to, but I know I can't pick and choose. But I mean, I'm on the side of yes, depending on what I'm meeting.
Sure. Okay. I think if it was something that was a normal occurrence, it would be something that's just more accepted. I want to point out, I think the doctor's name is Stephen Greer. If you get a chance to look at his movie is called Disclosure by Stephen Greer, and I think it's on Prime. Is that where we found it?
I believe so, yeah.
That's worth checking out. He gives a good explanation of why so many people are afraid of aliens or alien contact, and also he gives a different take, that of being not afraid of them and that they are actually kind. There is a kind species, and it's not something that you should be afraid of contact with them.
Yeah, I really enjoyed his particular take on it.
Sure.
It wasn't new per se, but the way that he presented it and the experience that he has had over the years with what he said, I'm just it's a little too. It's funny because as I was watching, I was like, this is a little too, you know, unscientific for me. You know what I mean? What we would call scientific is just a little too like new agey. I felt like, and that's not to detract from it or to call it in any way, shape, or form false or foolish or stupid or anything, because I really enjoyed his take on it and believe that he's a true believer in what he was saying. However, I guess I just don't, you know, I don't. Anyway, you'd have to watch it, but I don't love the way that.
I just present it. I just give it as an example for our viewers, for you to go check out, because it gives us a different view of it versus Hollywood's consistent. They're out to get us and just be frightened of extraterrestrials. So it was nice to see something different than being terrified of the contact.
Very sincere.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not you believe what he has to say or whatever, you have to give him and those that were working on this project with him and whom he has been working with for years on it, you have to give them credit because they were very sincere in their delivery.
Correct.
And I believe that they believe what they say they believe.
I believe so too. Yes.
Regardless of anything else, I believe it. What they say.
Yes, and I know at one point you were kind of surprised to hear that I'm a skeptic.
Skeptic about?
Just a lot of things. Even I like it. Just like someone tells me something, I'm just not like Bible. You know, like this is the ultimate.
You have to have a reason.
Yeah, I'm not like, I believe in extraterrestrials, but I'm not just like take everything is what it is. 100%. I am very skeptical, and I do analyze what's being said. Before I just take it.
What comes to my mind in describing that is you want to wait until you're compelled to compelled to the point of being convinced that what someone's telling you is correct.
Yeah.
Before you say, okay, I can put my foot there. Whereas I just keep walking until I just fall back or get pushed back by life, reality. And I just default to believing what someone's going to tell me until life just shows me differently.
Maybe that's
gullible. I'm gullible. I've been called gullible many times, and I'd have to agree with that. I tend to believe first and ask questions later.
Okay.
Whereas you tend
the opposite.
You do not believe, and you ask all the questions up front. So.
Yeah. Do you believe the extraterrestrials are on Earth now, or were they in the past? Those are pretty big questions. You can do one at a time.
You asking me, asking them?
You,
just throwing it out there?
I would like to hear what you have to say, maybe based off of your own theories or what we say.
Well, my worldview or universe view, I guess you could call it now at this point, is I do believe that the universe is incredibly old and incredibly large. So, being that the universe is probably close to 14 billion years old, if not older, maybe a little younger. Let's just say, for sake of argument, it is that old, and it is as large as we think it is, which is we can't even see the exterior of it yet. We can't see beyond it because it's all there is, and it's expanding at greater than the speed of light. That's incredible. So that, let's say that's the case. There's so much opportunity for so many different epochs to have taken place in our history, the history of the planet. There could have easily been life that rose up and then got submerged under by a large cataclysmic event, and then there was nothing for hundreds of thousands and millions of years, and then life took hold again, and it led us to the age of the dinosaurs, and then it could be the case.
Correct. Yes.
And to defend that, we don't know a whole. We think the center of the Earth is what we think it is, an iron nickel core,
right,
that's spinning with a more molten iron liquid. But we've never been there.
No.
Scientifically, it's probably correct, but we've never been there. We haven't searched, we haven't scoured like 90%, 80% of what's underneath the water of our own planet. I think it would be foolish for us to just shut off our minds and say, no, it had to have happened this particular way, the way I grew up hearing it and I read in textbooks and all that. I'm sure there's solid, strong evidence and good reason to believe a version of that, but no scientist worth their salt is saying this is exactly how it is. No, the scientist worth their salt.
Okay, I was like,
is
I'm
going
sure
to
there's
say
some.
this is the best guess we have, the most educated guess we have based on the available, observable, testable evidence.
Okay.
And so just by the size of the universe, the age of the universe, the age of our Earth, etc., etc., of course it's a possibility that there has been extraterrestrials that visit the Earth in the past and can be here now. I feel like there's no reason to dissuade us from believing that could be a possibility.
Yes.
Take for example, 1 billion is 1,000 million. So 1,000 million years to equal 1 billion. So you're talking about 14,000 million billion years, or I'm sorry, 14,000 million. You're talking about a lot of years. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But you're talking about a lot of years here. If in the universe there was a civilization, which let's just say there was 2 or 1 per galaxy, right? There's 1 billion galaxies, right? 1 per galaxy. There was an Earth which rose up intelligent life, something like ours. That's statistically not even unfathomable. That's graspable. And they started to evolve 1 million years before we did. They would be 1 million years ahead of us, assuming that they didn't have a massive cataclysm that started them back at the beginning and everything like that. 1 million years ahead of us. 1 million years ahead of us. Imagine what they could discover and do and build and how far they can make it in 1 million years. So we already have spacecraft which has left our solar system, which is almost out of reach of our communication and things like that. And if you put 1 million years on top of that, imagine where we could be. So I have no problem believing that there's a technologically advanced civilization that could have made it to Earth at some point.
Okay. And my belief on extraterrestrial or terrestrial, I think they're actually
Terrestrial,
still
extraterrestrials?
both.
Well, no, so there's extraterrestrials.
Outside.
And then there's terrestrial, living
Inside,
here,
yes.
but their origin is extraterrestrial. So would you call them TETs? Terrestrial extraterrestrials?
Oh, then, well, I really don't know. I guess I have kind of thought about it, but I haven't given a lot of thought. The ones I do think that actually are here on our planet, I don't know how long they've been here, and I don't know if they were originally here or they just came and this is where they inhabit. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do think there is a species or multiple, I don't know, that actually do live on our planet, or shall I say in our planet.
So you do believe the thought of underwater or
yeah
somewhere on the
so I guess there would be a few species then.
So you can have an aquatic one, then you can have a subterranean one.
Yes.
And again, I don't see any reason why not, but it's a possibility.
Where do I come up with those thoughts? Is because I have always watched, like you have ancient Egypt and you have the ancient pyramids. A lot of the way it's structured, the way things are created, do not at all look human constructed to me. And if you look at some of their structures, and my brother put it a really good way, he was looking at, I think we were in Greece. No, maybe he was in Italy. I think he was looking at something there. I don't remember. I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly what it was. But he had taken pictures and he was showing them to me, and he was like, you can't tell me that humans created this object and then went ahead and just drew this on there. Like, look at the difference in technology. He's like, this looks like graffiti on an object that was clearly created with some like,
and beyond the capability of those who
etched it on. So I know that's going to make a lot of probably people angry, but I don't think that the Egyptians were the ones that created a lot of those ancient structures.
Okay.
And it's not just based on that. That's just one of the things that has come to my mind. That's just like, I just find it hard. I mean, to this date, like I've watched many Nova specials and just different like classes in college and stuff like that. And it's just like, no one can figure out, everyone comes out with a really good guess of how they're able to stack all these blocks, but no one can figure it out. And it's even with our advanced technology today, we still can't create something that accurate. It just doesn't add up. And same with the Sphinx. I think that was there before the flood, the Great Flood. There were different scientists who had evaluated that and took it to a geologist and had them look at the erosion there and ask, like, what causes this type of erosion? And the person just looked at it and he said, that's water erosion. He's like, are you sure? Like, that might be wind. He's like, it's not, that's water. And he lifted the picture and was like, this is what that is. Right. And he was just like, oh my gosh. And that was just like a big indicator that was clearly underwater at some point in high water. And it's like, well, when was that? Sometime, not any time recent, when the Egyptians have been there, living and having their civilization. So, I mean, it's just a lot of stuff like that comes to me that I feel like definitely wasn't human created.
There's just, it all, for me, narrows down to one particular place, and there's megaliths all over the planet, but one particular set of megaliths, and that's in Lebanon, Baalbek. You have stones there that are not indigenous to that particular area, that had to be quarried and then transported a distance. And looking at different modern day depictions of how we could possibly move them, it would take multiple different high tension cranes and things of this nature to pick it up, to move it. And so how in the world is something like that constructed and then moved? I just, that's a limiting factor for me. So I've yet to hear somebody explain to me how it could be the case that the stones in Lebanon, Baalbek, how in the world those can be. We can all envision them being designed by stone tools and things like that, being chipped away at slowly over many years, even generations possibly. But the size of them and the weight of them, and for them to be moved a great distance and then lifted up and placed on I don't know how to think about that, except that there was some level of advanced technology, or something was different for that. Something had to be different. So our understanding of history doesn't answer those questions yet.
Not yet.
And
no.
so that doesn't necessarily mean extraterrestrials. It doesn't necessarily mean giants like something. But it means something different, something more advanced in some way. I don't know. But that for me is my limiting factor that I always go back to. Yes,
there's another place, and it's in like South America somewhere, and I can't think of the name of the actual place. Darn it. I think they're with the, I think it's the same place where they have the H stones.
Yeah, I know.
Do you know where that is?
I don't know where it's at, but
I'm forgetting now.
I want to say Peru.
Yeah, I don't think it's Peru.
Not Chile.
Somewhere else. I don't remember. But it's like the similar type of things. And I'm not talking about the H-stones. It's something else. I'm just saying it's somewhere down there. But they're saying that, they think it's the same thing. This rock was quarried somewhere else, like miles away, like over mountains, way far away. And, of course, the scientists are like, they just cut trees and then used to slide the block through the mountains and stuff. And, like, the funny thing that, like, totally throws that theory off is there are no trees out there. And it's just because the elevation is just so desert that just those mountains aren't covered with trees. So for them to go chopping the forest all the way down to get these quarried stones over there, they're like, well, that doesn't really make sense. It's a great theory.
Well,
but
I don't know. I mean, just as you're saying that, you say great theory. I don't really think it is. I mean, people who, really had to work to get their food on a daily basis. They weren't nomadic per se or what have you. But I mean that farming and creating a community and just going about that's a lot of work without, someone coming up and saying, what do you think we make giant megaliths? But hear me out. Not out of rock that's here, but rock 14 valleys over.
Well, I'm saying it's a great theory.
I'm saying it's like, I can't see them being like, you know what, Fred, that's a solid idea.
Well, I'm just saying, like, in the theory of, like, this is how it could be moved. A tree being used as a wheel to move an object. That's why I'm like, it's a great theory on how to move something. The
physics of,
Yeah, but the whole entire picture.
The whole picture, right. I think it deteriorates.
Little off, yeah.
Yeah, I just don't see that being the case. I'm not, an archaeologist or not an archaeologist, and I'm not an anthropologist, but I'm just saying sometimes you don't have to be those things to be like, yeah, that doesn't pass the sniff test to me. So more information, perhaps it will, but I don't know. Anyway. Definitely our standard understanding of history doesn't address some of these large outstanding megaliths, that are these rocks, these stumbling stones, if you want to call it that are in our way, quite literally.
Final thoughts to what we discussed today. We'll continue this talk in another video.
Sure.
But what are your final thoughts on this?
Multiple times, but just a general thought that, I guess, an all-encompassing thought that comes to mind. I have been an absolute believer in what we would call young Earth creationism. I've made fun of the thought, much less the actual belief people hold of evolution, or the thought that they hold that that's the case and all that. And I've had my world turned upside down to where aspects of my beliefs before still played a small part into the beliefs that I came to believe after I came across this information or had that experience. I'm just saying it's complicated. People are complicated, and that's the first step. History is complicated. Science, while in theory is not complicated, in application is absolutely. So there's room for belief and disbelief, and it should be perhaps put onto a scale, onto a continuum, as opposed to just you believe or you don't. With that said, there's always room for growth. There's room to backtrack and revisit what you thought and what you think. There's room to question what you believe and question the beliefs of others who are trying to persuade you of something. Examine why you believe what you believe. And when you do that, I think that's the best way to get at what you truly believe, because you see that what you believe is based off of very little information oftentimes.
Sure.
I'm fond of saying that we are simply a product of the most influential things and people in our lives. Being that is the case, we should move forward. We shouldn't believe this year the exact same thing that we believed last year, because we are inevitably incorrect, or at least incomplete in our thoughts and beliefs. So question what you believe and why, but be willing to hold on to the things that make sense, and to dismiss the things that don't. That's my final thought.
And maybe on the next episode, we can talk about what we think about the government's disclosure. I put it in quotes because it's like what they've disclosed. So until next time, Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.